What's up, everyone, and welcome into a special edition of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Today, we have the pleasure of talking with host of the Roughnecks TV, Jaci Solomon. Jaci, thanks for jumping on with us. How's it going?
Good. Hey, thanks for having me. It's going great. It's a really exciting time with the Roughnecks right now, making a strong playoff push. So I'm looking forward to diving into it.
Yeah, so I have asked everybody that's come on this show so far in this interview series that we started up this same question. I'm going to continue it the rest of the series that we do this. What is one word to describe the Roughnecks season so far?
I would say resilient. This team has faced adversity, but continues to find a way to win, whether it's bouncing back from tough losses or grinding out close games. They've shown a ton of that, and they have a lot of fight.
Yeah, I mean, even just looking at what they did on Saturday in Banditland, sellout. I mean, putting up 17 goals. I think that's the most Buffalo's allowed since game one of last season. It's insane how talented of an offense they have.
Oh, absolutely.
But we saw firsthand, like I just mentioned, Saturday, all the changes that Calgary made in the offseason, and those changes continue just on Monday with the trade deadline. But, I mean, the last time Bandits faced them, besides on Saturday, was April 2024, and they had the likes of Del Bianco, they had Simpson, Courier, etc. But this past Saturday, we saw a new version of the Roughnecks. And what would you say is the biggest change from last year's team that finished 8-10, sitting on the outside of the playoffs, to this team right now that's 7-6 in the thick of a playoff race? It could be a player, a scheme, even the schedule.
I think the biggest change has been consistency and execution. You know, last season they had flashes of brilliance, but struggled to string together a complete performance. And that's been a bit of a struggle for them as well earlier this season. This year, they're closing out games better, getting more reliable goaltending as well, and capitalizing on their scoring chances. The addition of Nick Rose has been a huge game changer for this team. But overall, commitment to a full 60. Coach Josh Anderson has been saying this all year. They need to commit to a full 60-minute effort, and that's made the biggest difference for this team.
Yeah, and even talking about the consistencies and executing, I think the majority of their forwards are shooting over 20% right now. It's just an unbelievable clip that forward has. And like we mentioned already, the offense is loaded. Curtis Dixon leads the league in scoring. Dane Dobie's fourth. You got Jaci King, who's sixth in assists. In fact, I mean, they have 5 players in the top 30 in points this season. Now, they just put up 17 on Saturday, which is the most that Buffalo's allowed since game 1 versus Albany last year. We mentioned it in the offseason and leading up to this last game, but what makes this offense just so lethal, sitting second in the league in scoring?
Well, absolutely. Yeah, 4 different guys had hat tricks on a Saturday night, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. It's the depth and versatility. You know, you've got guys like Dixon and Dobie who are proven goal scorers, but they're also completed by emerging stars like Braden Maillet. That goal, that rebound that he had off of Tyler Pace was just absolutely incredible. You know, the ball movement has been crisp. They're attacking from multiple angles and they're deadly in transition. But that combination kind of makes them really tough to defend.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you just mentioned it, the 4 players and Maya's goal, it was unbelievable. I think he scored it before his feet even touched the ground.
Yeah.
But I talked to Riley Polick last week about this guy, and yeah, I think he brought him up perfectly. He went 3-3-6 last game, 13 loose balls in Buffalo in place of Dane Dobie, who was out with injury. And I need to bring him up again. Braden Maya, I mean, this kid is going to be special, and he's already special right now. He's only played in 6 games, but 9 goals, 14 assists, 23 points. But Tanner Cook, Jaci King, and Dobie are tough to crack that side of the offense. So sometimes it could actually be beneficial for a rookie to play so sparingly in his first year. But speak to how having guys like Dixon, Dobie, King, and even Josh Sanderson, who made a name for himself in the league, and he's in the top 10 of scoring, but having guys like that around a Braden Maya can be so critical for his growth and future success in the NLL.
Having that kind of veteran leadership is huge. These guys have been through every situation possible in the NLL, deep playoff runs, championship wins, tough losses. So for a young player like Braden Maillet, being able to learn from those guys is invaluable. They're teaching him, all about the game, how to handle pressure, how to be a pro, both on and off the floor. And it's a perfect situation for his development.
So the biggest thing to me that stood out on Saturday in that game was just how well the defense played in against the Bandits. I mean, it's just the second time all year that a team has held them to 11 or fewer goals. And even one of their top defenders, Bennett Smith, was out. And their last 4 games, the team is allowing 11.25 goals against, and they were at 13 goals against in the first 9. Now, we will talk about Nick Rose in just a second, but what to you have you seen from this defense in the last 4 weeks that has improved since the start of the season?
They've really tightened up their communication and positioning. Early in the season, we saw some breakdowns leading to high quality chances. Lately, they're forcing teams into tougher shots, doing a better job sliding when needed and closing down shooting lanes as well. The defensive unit is playing more as more of a cohesive group, and it's paying off in the long run.
Yeah, and even they're adding Braden Lady coming up in that massive deal from Monday with Christian Del Bianco. So that doesn't hurt to add a second-year pro like that. But a player that I didn't think gets enough attention around the league is Eli Salama. And, I mean, he was one of the few holdovers from last year's team. He was actually a player that I had on my target board for the Bandits in the offseason when Calgary was moving all their bigger name pieces. And he's second on the team in loose balls, 5th in caused turnovers, 1st in block shots. But at 28, he's one of the veteran statesmen on the back end, and he's wearing an A. And he's kind of been a leader on the back end. What type of growth have you seen from Eli in terms of kind of taking over that leadership role from the departures of like a Shane Simpson or a Zach Currier?
I love this because when I talked to Eli at the beginning of the season, I said, "What kind of leader are you?" And he said, "I lead more by example." And this year, especially in the game with Buffalo, we kind of saw him step up into more of a vocal leader and playing a steady presence on the floor, which he always has. He's embraced that challenge of fulfilling that leadership role and that leadership gap to kind of step in, setting the tone defensively and in transition as well. You can just see his confidence, growing each game, and his teammates have really responded well to his leadership.
Yeah, and sometimes the best leaders are the ones that aren't the ones speaking so loudly. It's the ones that go on the field, do their job, and just lead by example, like you just said.
Absolutely, yeah.
So 2 games in, and the Roughnecks, or 2 games in for the Roughnecks in a Roughnecks uniform for Nick Rose. He's 1-1, allowing 11 goals both in Colorado or versus Colorado and in Buffalo. Although everyone is, under the belief he's likely heading back to Toronto at the end of the season, we won't even get into that. He is the man between the pipes in Calgary for the rest of the season. And I always have at least one no-duh kind of question in these interviews, so this is likely it. How big was it for this team to add a guy like Nick Rose to a team that, was having a tougher time in between the pipes with Cam McLeod kind of getting his first real start in the NLL?
Yeah, it's a no-duh question, but I love it. And the impact can't be overstated. Rose brings stability, experience, and lots of confidence to this team. And we saw that on Saturday. Big goaltending has been a really big question mark coming into the season for the Roughnecks. And he's completely changed that outlook. The defense trusts him, and that allows them to play more aggressively, knowing they have a rock-solid net presence behind them. Now, with that coming in, it's a big change for him getting used to that defensive group. But with him came along Tyler Hendricks as well from the Toronto Rock. So I feel that bond and that chemistry that they have also kind of helps and just kind of sets a base standard, and they're able to grow from there.
Yeah, and we've also mentioned it, especially leading up to that first game, that it might be difficult for a team like Buffalo, who has seen Nick Rose so often, in front of Toronto's defense. They have not seen him much behind a Calgary defense, so that might have shaken him up, and that might be part of the reason why Buffalo only scored 11 goals on Saturday. So this is the third time. I'm sorry, that was the third time. This is going to be the 4th time versus Buffalo this year, and it was his first win since 2023. Which idea do you think better fits when it comes to Rose versus Buffalo? That the goalie gets the advantage on the shooters the more times they play, or the idea that while shooters might have the book on Rose, they didn't have the book behind a Calgary defense.
I'd lean more towards the second idea. Buffalo shooters might have known Rose's tendencies, and they watch all the film in the world. We know that. But they didn't have the read on him with Calgary's defensive system. And I think that is really working to Calgary's advantage. The Calgary defense has been improving, and they continue to gel. And it gives, Rose the support that he needs to make those key plays and make those key stops.
Yeah, that's the way I was leaning as well. Just because there was years ago, I think Buffalo faced Nick Rose like 5 times. And by the 5th time, you were still getting the best of him. So in this situation, having a defense that you're not familiar with in front of a goaltender like that, it definitely has confused Buffalo. So we'll see. And part 2 is coming up on Saturday. Calgary got the best of Buffalo in Banditland in Game 1. Obviously, the Roughnecks are looking for the season sweep to get themselves to win 8 and keeping pace to get a home playoff game. But beating any team in the league is very, very difficult, let alone twice in back-to-back weeks, especially if it's Buffalo, the defending champion. So what do you think is the biggest key for Calgary to pull the sweep off of Buffalo?
They know they have a target on their backs coming back home this weekend. Buffalo's, looking to get some revenge, but the biggest key for Calgary is discipline and transition play. Buffalo thrives on capitalizing off of their mistakes, so staying out of the penalty box and limiting turnovers will be critical for Calgary. If Calgary can control the pace and use their speed in the transition, they'll put themselves in a great spot to kind of finish the sweep with Buffalo, which no other team has done this season. And, to beat the first place team in the NLL right now in such a tight standings with the playoff race is huge. So other teams are going to be eyes on that game as well this weekend.
Oh, yeah, 100%, especially with you had Georgia and Halifax falling last weekend. The opportunity to get into that top 4 spot for a home playoff game, which the Roughneck fans are going to absolutely love, is right there for the taking. And Calgary is expected to pack the barn. It's the I almost said 4th of July. It's St. Patrick's Day weekend coming up, and I know that's one of the biggest sellout games in Calgary. So it's likely to be one of the biggest road crowds Buffalo has faced in a long, long time. How big of an impact can a crowd have for a home team?
A massive impact. The energy is in the building fuels the players, especially when a big momentum swings. When the crowd is loud and engaged, it makes the communication tougher for the opposition. Calgary, they saw it in Buffalo that they had a full house and they didn't let them stop them, so I think that fueled them even more, even just playing in another city where their barn was full as well. So Calgary fans, they always bring it. So it should be an electric atmosphere. And lots of vamonos. So,
yeah, I listened to the podcast with Del Bianco and Pace today, and I think Pace got asked the one question about what's one of the best traditions, and the goal song was one of the top ones he mentioned. He goes, the crowd just goes nuts for it.
Oh yeah, they love it. They stand every time. It's awesome.
So just a couple more here for you. What type of game are you expecting to see on Saturday night in the rematch? I mean, the game was very close up in the 4th quarter. I mean, it was a 1-goal game entering the 4th quarter until kind of Calgary pulled away at the end. Are you expecting another 20-goal outing? Are you expecting a more closer one? I'm not going to ask a score prediction because they're hard to get, but what kind of game are you kind of expecting to see on Saturday?
I'm going to expect something a little bit tighter. Defensively as well. Like they're going to tighten up. It'll be a closer game, I think, for sure. Both teams are going to make adjustments. We're going to have Vancouver coming in, like Braden Lady coming in from Vancouver. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But both teams are going to be making, adjustments, and the intensity will probably slow the game down a bit because tensions will be high. I still think offensively, the fireworks will still happen, and Dobie may be back in the lineup this weekend as well. I wouldn't be surprised if it's more like 22-24 goal range. It'll be interesting to see. I think a lot of people have high anticipation for this upcoming game. And, kind of the unknowns. And, Calgary's just got to be ready to play and ready to go and expect Buffalo to really come out hot. So, yeah, Tiger score for sure.
So last one for you. And I meant to start asking this when I started this interview series, but like most things, I kind of forgot. But I'm going to start it now. I'm going to keep a tally. So you're the first one here. And it was and probably still is a hot button topic here in the BSC. And I currently stand alone. I'm not going to let you know which side of the fence I'm standing on. But here's the battle. You bake 2 lasagnas. After you're done baking them, you take one and you place it on top of the other. Do you have 2 lasagnas or now do you have 1?
That's a tough question. Oh,
nope, I got you.
oh, it's okay. Okay, good. I'm like,
Yep.
What is happening? Okay, that's a tough question. Okay, I love this. So I think I'm just gonna go. You have 1 lasagna because once you stack them, they merge into one giant lasagna, one masterpiece lasagna, and you got like 12 layered lasagna. So the only way it stays 2 if you separate them again. So I think you got 1 lasagna, I'd say, right? I don't know.
I am still alone on my side. I still
You're
think
alone.
it's
You got
2
lasagnas.
I get more complicated in my answer. The reason why, if you put it back into the oven and fuse the 2, I think it becomes 1. But it's I refer to it like a double cheeseburger. It's not like you have it. It's still a double cheese. To me, it would be a double lasagna. But I'm still alone.
That makes sense. Okay.
We'll go with your first answer. So that concludes this one. Jaci, thank you for joining us on the Buffalo Sports Collective, even though you got that last question wrong. Do you want to let everyone know where you can or where people can find you and your content for the Roughnecks?
Absolutely. You can catch all my coverage of the Roughnecks on our official social channels at NLL Roughnecks, and you can catch my personal at Jaci Solomon. So thanks again for having me. I always love talking lacrosse.
Perfect. Thank you for joining us on the BSC. Hope to talk to you down the road and continued success with the Roughnecks.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
So we will be back Friday with our normal episode to preview Bandits versus Roughnecks number 2. Talk to you all then.